clients were everywhere. If I was just open to meeting somebody and having a conversation and understanding where they were coming from, it naturally turned into a client. And that's been what we've continued to do to this day.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be a great one. Our guest is the owner of Busy Bee Advisors in Sacramento, California, Melissa Broughton. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Michael.
Hey, it's great to have you. And I would love for you to tell us a little bit about you before we get started so our listeners can get to know you. What have you been doing in your life that has led you to doing what you are doing today?
20 years, not to date myself too much, of corporate accounting. And I honestly, I got tired of working for somebody else and being in a controller position or a VP of finance position or whatever the title was. It was always very difficult to take vacation. It was difficult to get away for if my boys needed anything, if there was a school function. I just felt really limited. And honestly, one day I kind of had enough. And it's a little bit of a funny story, but my husband and I were on a cruise for my 40th birthday. And we got off the ship and we were walking around in Puerto Vallarta and stopped at a bar and made the mistake of calling work. It was probably the first vacation I had had in years. And of course, everything was, there were issues, and there were issues that my boss, who was the owner of the company, had self-created, and they were things that he routinely did, but I was there to usually fix. He liked to transfer money out of our payroll tax account. And he transferred money and payroll taxes didn't get paid and he got nasty notices. And so, right there on the spot, I quit my job. And then it was a matter of, enjoying the rest of the cruise and figuring out what the plan was when we got home. So that was how our little firm started.
Wow, that's crazy. Was the call before you got into the bar or after you'd been in the bar?
It was after we had been in the bar, and it's kind of funny.
Probably a good thing.
Probably, that liquid courage. I'm not a big drinker, so that that liquid courage of a few pina coladas of I'm not going to put up with this, and then after the fact going, oh boy, what did I just do? And looking at my husband, who now is my partner actually in our firm. So yeah,
that's cool.
Things worked out very, very well. So,
and what was his background?
So his background was he had worked on the finance side in his family's construction business. So he has the finance experience, but during our marriage, he had actually been a nurse.
Okay.
And it was pretty fortuitous right before COVID hit and everything went kind of crazy. I gave him the grand proposition of you should quit your job and come and work alongside me. And he actually surprised me and said yes. So he went back to school, finished his degree, and he runs the tax side of our firm and I run the bookkeeping side of our firm.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, how long ago was it that you were in Puerto Vallarta and quit your job?
So that was the end of 2016. It was the beginning of 2017, 16, 17, right around there. And then we officially launched, or I should say I officially launched Busy Bee Advisors in October of 2017. That was when we landed our first client and kind of hit the road running or whatever you want to say.
I'd love to hear that story. What was it like establishing your business and how did that all go?
As with anything, it was a little bit scary. I think all of us, or at least anybody I've talked to, we face, even though we know our stuff, we'll still face a little bit of imposter syndrome. And to make matters even worse, I really enjoyed summer with my kids, and they went back to school. I decided I'm going to go for a run and really, get serious and figure out what I'm going to do with this business that I had thought about a little bit. And when I was running, I fell and I broke my jaw. I shattered most of my teeth. I mean, it was horrible. And so I had a good 6 weeks to figure out really, I built a business plan. I couldn't do anything else. So I built a business plan and gave myself about 2 weeks at that point to get my first client and figure out if this was going to happen or if I needed to put my resume out there again. And it was kind of the 11th hour. And I'm not a big social media person. I had a friend from high school who reached out to me on Facebook and said, I have this friend. He's a pilot. He does pet mitigation for marijuana farms. And he needs somebody who can work remotely, which is, that's what I wanted, who can work remotely and help him until he settles into an office and can hire staff. So it bought me about 6 months of having a client that was really a large client. So revenue wise, it was a large client, but I knew that there would be an end date for that client. So I had then 6 months. I had this gift really of 6 months to have a client that was paying me to do work and to still be able to find other clients. And we really, holy cow, by October of 2018, we had hit the 200 client mark. So we grew.
October of 2018. So 1 year.
1 year. It was ridiculous.
Clients.
The growth was crazy. Unless you really want to lose your mind, I don't recommend it. But what I can say for anybody who's interested in this industry or who is wondering if it makes sense to be a part of this industry, there is still so much, there's so much business out there.
Yeah, I'm really curious. 200 clients in a year. Where did they come from? How did you find them? What did that look like?
We at that point, we weren't doing really any advertising. So everything was all word of mouth. We sent postcards out to new business owners. I didn't have a marketing firm that I was working with at that time. It was just a matter of, I would work with a client and I would say, hey, do you know anybody who could use our services? My admin at the time was out there networking. I was out there networking. Our goal for everybody on staff was, we'd get 250 business cards each every month, and just to go out there and hustle like you need to do and see what happens. But what I found was that just having a conversation with somebody, especially somebody who's a small business owner, and being able to relate with them and understanding kind of their pain points made it an easy sell. And that's really been the philosophy that we've continued on with, although we've slowed down the growth a little bit, but
wow.
Yeah.
So I'm curious now, looking back at that experience, what would you do differently about it that first couple of years?
Probably hire, I would say have hired more staff, have been willing to make the jump. So November of 2018 was when we moved into a commercial office space. Had made the move into a commercial office space probably sooner. It just created an environment where staff was all together when we were really in that building phase. We've since moved to kind of a remote hybrid situation. So we work from home most times. We have a commercial space that we go into just so clients aren't, stopping by our house and meeting our crazy puppy to drop off paperwork and things like that. But the pandemic was really interesting for us because it took a business where, maybe younger clients were used to doing everything remotely, but you still had those older clients that hadn't embraced technology. and that changed it for us. So in that way, the pandemic was helpful for us,
Yeah.
and it allowed us to be able to work remotely.
It was an interesting one. Heard it often, and it was prior. The bookkeeper was almost begging for them to switch to newer technology, and then it flipped to them begging, "Please switch us to newer technology."
Yep.
Turned the table quite quickly, and for the better of efficiency, for sure, for accountants and bookkeepers, and for those businesses, right, to
Yep.
take a leap forward into technology.
Not to cut you off, but kind of the flip side to the question you asked is I look back and I think of all of the things that we did right that I didn't even, at the time, I didn't even realize we were doing right. So for me,
let's hear some of those.
Well, hiring was the biggest thing. So I really hired people that I liked more than for their impressive resumes. So I thought about people that I would want to have dinner with or people that I would want to genuinely spend time with, because the bookkeeping and the skills of bookkeeping honestly can be trained.
That's right.
The running of an office, that's something that you can teach somebody. But if they've got that, that warm heart and a really giving attitude, you just can't go wrong.
That's right. If people are nice people, you like spending time with them and they're coachable and open, there's nothing that can't be achieved.
Yep.
Whereas if they're not coachable, not friendly, not enjoyable to be around, well, that's a world of hurt.
It is. And this industry is full of people that are not the most social. Accountants are not always known and bookkeepers are not always known for being the most social people. So when I tried to do it, hiring the right way, I found that I would have these people that I would meet and they would have these fantastic resumes, but communication wise, they were horrible. And, if at the interview process, you're not really warming up to that candidate, and they're not, that's when they're going to give it their best. So we of course had some interesting hires along the way. But for the most part, just kind of going with my gut and with people that I really liked was a good choice.
That's great. So hiring, you did right, not even knowing it. You followed your instincts and intuition on that.
Yep.
What else?
Setting up this business so that it could be completely remote, so that I could work from anywhere, so that if at the time, my oldest son, who's now done 6 years in the Marine Corps and will be home in August.
Wow, congratulations.
At that time, he was a junior in high school when I started the company. And really, that was my biggest. I didn't want to miss anything. I didn't want to miss his water polo tournaments that were all over the state of California. And you just can't ask a boss, hey, I need 3 days off to go watch some high school kids play water polo. Especially a boss who didn't have kids. So I set everything up with all of this technology at the time that was completely new. I mean, Google Meet was completely new. Zoom was technology that most people weren't comfortable using software programs. Dropbox was pretty new. A lot of the cloud-based things were new. So just embracing technology and keeping to the goal of being able to, as long as I had a laptop and an internet connection, to be able to work from anywhere.
We've talked a lot about that intentionality of purpose of design of your business, that it serves you and your life and is a fit for you in your life, and making sure, hey, where am I going and how is this business going to feed that versus the opposite?
Yes.
So you set it up right. What were some of the other things that you did that you nailed?
For getting clients, it was kind of funny. I'm not a natural salesperson. I like solving problems though. And the bookkeeping or, putting that financial puzzle together for clients is such an easy problem solve. If I could do it for free, I probably would. And that was really my initial tactic when I started. That was definitely how we built to the first 200. They would, I would meet somebody or or one of my staff would meet somebody, I'd get to the point where I could have that conversation with somebody. And I still start at my consultations the same way of asking a client, hey, what's going on? And they'll tell you exactly what their pain points are. And, okay, so this is what's going on for you. And why don't you give us the opportunity for a month? We won't charge you to see what we can do. And how does that sound? And it's just an offer that it's really hard for people to say no to. Now, we don't do the free offer anymore because we're in a different position, but it gave us the opportunity to learn the clients that we wanted to work with, maybe the industries that we wanted to work with and industries that we wanted to stay away from. One of the things that we did not do was we did not set out and specialize in any industries. And I had a lot of people that I talked to early on that said, you need to find a specialty. You need to find, who's your ideal client. And you just need to focus on that client and become experts in that field. And I found that clients were everywhere. If I was just open to meeting somebody and having a conversation and understanding where they were coming from, it naturally turned into a client. And that's been what we've continued to do to this day.
Interesting. And then your husband then joined the business. And what was that transition like?
That transition was hysterical. For anybody who's married and works with their spouse, they I'm sure will agree with me. We learned very early on that there was definitely a separation of church and state, as we call it. He is in the tax realm. That is not my realm at all. I can probably answer some basic questions for people, but, I completely stay away from that realm. If people start to ask tax questions, I just refer them to him, and vice versa with tax. It's such a natural referral to bookkeeping, especially with, business owners, that he'll do the referral, but he doesn't really get into anything about, except for really basic stuff about what we do. So when we were in our commercial space, people would laugh because he had actually a separate entrance to his office. And at the time, he had a male assistant. And probably for the first 2 years, he had a male assistant. So it was boys on one side, and then it was like girls on the other side. And we have a few male bookkeepers now at this point, but for years it was all women on the bookkeeping side and, all men on the tax side. So that was kind of funny. It was lots of boys versus girls jokes and things along those lines.
That's right. And we won't get into who's winning most of the time.
Yeah, we won't get into who's winning most of the time because I just don't think that's fair. I think there's a lot of times that he lets me win, and probably a lot of times that I let him win as well. But
that's right. Well, very gracious, very gracious. So now you have this business established. Your husband is in there. It's kind of a family-run business.
It is.
What would you say you would recommend if others are thinking about starting a business or adding other family members to their business? Any words of advice for them?
Oh, if, two separate questions there, right? So if they're thinking of starting a business, the one thing that I would say is have a business plan. It doesn't have to be, 50 pages. It can be a simple page, but really have your intention of what your objective is and what your purpose is. The biggest reason I would say for that is there are days, just like with a job, there are days where being a business owner, you can feel like your butt just gets handed to you. I mean, you're just getting raked over the coals. It's one fire after another. Thankfully, that's not every day. That's not even most days, but there are tough days. And if you know what your purpose is and what your reason is, it makes it a lot easier to power through those days. The other recommendation I would have is having some really clear objectives on what your income goals are. We had some benchmarks early on that we really surpassed quickly. My first initial goal was to have, to bring in $4,000 a month for our family. That was what, between his job and really cutting back on everything that I needed to bring in to, so that we weren't starving. And it just those two goals, I would say once you get a little bit more established, or maybe early on, is to find a good attorney just to have in your back pocket. Because there are weird things that happen when you're a business owner. There's just weird situations, and having an attorney in your corner that you feel like you can, pick up the phone and call if you have questions is really important. So those would be my three things. As far as hiring family, if there's somebody, it depends on the relationship. My husband and I have owned other businesses before, so we had some experience on how we work together. But I think that there are people that I know that I could see them as a couple doing something like what we're doing, running a business together. And then there's other couples that I know that they're very happily married, but I definitely don't think that they would do well working together.
That's right. Personality-wise, all sorts of factors that you bring along with you into that business. Business is tough already, so if it could cause to be a real tough situation. Yes,
it definitely puts a magnifying glass. It's kind of like having a baby. It puts a magnifying glass on either the good or the bad. So if maybe there's already some pain points, it's really going to put the pressure on those pain points. But if communication is good, then I would say go for it. There's nobody that I'd rather have in my corner than him. So
very, very cool. And that's congratulations on that.
Thanks.
And so now, what do you see for the future for your business? Where are you headed? What are you working on?
So I would say end of last year, October. October's a crazy month for me, but
yes.
Probably October of last year, we had 3 offers for buyouts of the bookkeeping side of things. The bookkeeping industry is really ripe for change, I guess. It's kind of this untapped industry where traditionally you have, if you think about a bookkeeper, you have this lady that maybe has a lot of cats and she sits very isolated in an office or from home. She's not social. So that means getting new clients isn't really good for her, easy for her. And bookkeeping seems to be a service that a lot of tax firms know they need, but to manage it is it's just a whole different animal than taxes, right? So we've had a few offers. I'm not sure if we'll take those offers. I'm not sure if we'll have somebody else invest in the business, but right now we're actually not looking for any new bookkeeping clients. We're putting people in kind of a hold status and really cherry picking those ideal clients, those ones that are exciting that we want to work with, or maybe in industries that we haven't worked in before. And I am actually in the process of launching 2 different courses. One is a bookkeeping course for small business owners. So maybe those people that don't necessarily fit the bill of needing to hire a bookkeeper because they have the time to be able to manage it themselves and they just don't know what to do. And then the other course is a bookkeeping course for people who want to, who want to start their own bookkeeping firm. Because again, there is still so much business out there. I mean, I think I had probably 15 calls last week from prospective clients.
Wow.
So it's an exciting time.
Very exciting time. Well, that's exciting. So you're expanding into helping both business owners and bookkeepers through education, and you've had some offers to sell your business, which we hear more and more all the time. It's been something for years. Buying a firm. There's a lot of opportunities for other companies to take advantage of the client base, but it's getting bigger and bigger as you've echoed as well. Very exciting. Tell us a little bit about that course that you're building for bookkeepers. Like, what is it that you think really helps new bookkeepers that are starting their business or getting into the profession? What is it that they lack and that you really help them with?
So I'll tell you more, and then we'll get into the answering your question. So the bigger picture is when I started, so in 2016, 2017, to hire other bookkeepers. I could find good, locally, even in California, I could find good bookkeepers, maybe with not a ton of experience, but good bookkeepers at maybe a $15 an hour price point. And it would go $15 to $20 an hour. And I could find people. Well, if anybody's paid attention to what's going on, that's just not out there anymore. I mean, to find somebody, I don't even think I could find somebody anymore at the $15 an hour price point, not somebody that had experience. So we really had to get creative with kind of creating an internal training program so that I wasn't having to do the same things with everybody that I brought on. I definitely don't do the books myself for 200 clients.
No.
So I started to develop a class to teach them, the basics of reconciliations and just good habits and good processes, and what I've added on to that. So that class was kind of the foundation that I used for the course. And then what was added on to that was, things like the importance of having an attorney and developing a contract. So we give them a template for a contract to give them a place to start. We give them, the software deck. That was probably the software piece was probably the thing that I spent the most money on when I look back to figure out what was the best mix for us, because there are so many software programs out there that promise that they're a one size fits all. They'll do everything for you, and they just don't. So to save some time and some frustration, and if you are going to jump into the marketing aspect, really where to put your marketing dollars and where to spend your time, and kind of what the workflow looks like for somebody who wants to work with 10 clients, or what the workflow looks like for somebody who wants to work with 100 clients and needs to do things like adding staff and things along those lines. So it starts with the reconciliations, and then it goes on to a lot of, our experience, and still our experience for what's working being, a business owner in today's market.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Very cool. And if people wanted to learn more about you, where would they get that information?
There's two different places they can go. They can go to busybeeadvisors.com, or they can go to ineedbookkeeping.com.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
Beautiful. Melissa, this has been fantastic. What an interesting career you've had. And it started with way back in Puerto Vallarta, and through ups and downs.
Yeah.
And here you are. You've built a fantastic business, and you're now helping bookkeepers and their businesses, and also business owners take advantage of learning more about the bookkeeping. Fantastic. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Thanks, Michael.
Wonderful. And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.